Good morning and welcome to the weekly pet pairing. I'm just going to start doing my makeup as I usually do as we continue chatting. The first thing I wanted to ask, because I don't know that I've seen a release date or any announcement for when the holiday collection is going to be available. So if any of you have information about that, please do let me know. I low-key expected that since she announced it last week, already end of this week, it's going to be on sale. But I was wrong, which implies that it will probably be on sale sometime towards the end of next week. But yeah, she hasn't really announced anything. And also, she hasn't really posted too much swatches of the palettes. I think the only palette that she posted swatches for was the one that I have the least interest in, which is the Jewel... Is it Jewel Temptations? Anyway, the one that looks like a deja vu of like a bunch of other Pat McGrath palettes. Everyone has their own ideas of like which palette that reminds them of, and honestly it's like I can tell you for a fact it's at least several palettes that it reminds you of. It's not just the one. Especially if you've been collecting Pat McGrath for a little bit, the combination of the purple, the gold with the bronzes is like from her early days palettes that you're going to have in your collection. I should probably tell you, I'm taking Auric Glow Lust to apply here underneath my eyes, a bit as a corrector, brightener, hydrator. Oh, in excellent news, Auric is now offered via Beautylish, which I think will make the brand so much more accessible, especially for people who have to order from outside the US. I keep thinking that she ships out of Canada, but she doesn't. She actually ships out of the US. So even for Canadians, purchasing her products is ridiculously expensive. But now that she's offered through Beautylish, I'm really hoping that her brand is going to gain a little bit more exposure, because I can tell you for a fact, Glow Lust is not a product that you've ever experienced before. It is so good. I'm going to do my little mixy mix here of the Dior and the Estee Lauder Double Wear foundations. I can actually tell you for a fact there isn't that much left in the Dior foundation, so I think you're going to see that as an empty in my next monthly roundup and empties, whenever that is. And I've just like really been enjoying my Double Wear foundation. I just forgot how well that foundation lasts on my skin. I enjoy a lot of the other like more hydrating glowy type foundations, like the NARS Light Reflecting, the MAC Studio Water Weight, the now discontinued Estee Lauder Double Wear Nude Foundation, but those foundations would always, you know, break up a little bit towards the end of the day for me, so I would always have to be a little bit careful that I find a mirror to fix the little bit of, you know, displacement that has happened on my face over the course of the day. And with the Double Wear formula, like the original Double Wear formula, now that I've been using it for a couple of weeks, I've realized I never have to do that. Everything is just there until the moment I remove it late in the evening. And late, we're talking about like 15-16 hours later, because I apply my makeup in the morning before work and then I basically just prance around with it the whole day and the whole evening, and I take it off right before I go to bed. And with the Estee Lauder Double Wear foundation now, I just never have to check how my foundation is looking, because it's always looking great. For concealer, I'm also going to take my Lancome Teint Idol, which has been my go-to this past month. In other news, I finally watched the live-action version of The Little Mermaid. It's been out for a while, it was in the cinemas, but I didn't really get around to watching it in the cinema, and because I knew eventually it will be on Disney Plus, I figured I'm just going to wait until it's on Disney Plus. The wait was a little bit longer than I anticipated, because I sneakily suspect that this movie actually did quite well in the cinemas, which is why they waited a couple of months before putting it on Disney Plus. Some of the movies go on Disney Plus really fast, and some take a few months, and I assume that has to do with how well the movie does in the theaters. And I think this one did really well, and for good reason, honestly. I watched it twice last week, and I can't promise that I'm not going to watch it again sometime this week, because I enjoyed it tremendously. First of all, you need to know about my history with The Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid, not surprisingly, as for many little girls, was my favorite Disney movie when I was growing up. But you also need to realize the special connection that I have with The Little Mermaid, because we're talking here beginning of the night, like really early 90s, possibly even late 80s. we were still living in like the very first apartment that, you know, I grew up in, and I was like under the age of 10, or probably around the age of 10, so I think it was like really, really early 90s. My brother and I got our first like own VHSs that we could pick with a movie that we really enjoy, and I picked The Little Mermaid and he picked the Batman movie, like the original one with Michael Keaton, you know, the one by Tim Burton. I'm going to take the Airbrush Flawless Finish powder. I also have to say that one really slowly because otherwise I mangle all the words together. And look at this beautiful growing pan. I'm quite enjoying this panning situation here. I think I've had this powder for something close to 2 years now. Has it been 2 years? It cannot be under a year, so it's probably been almost 2 years. And I am very happy that it's getting such good use. And as of now, it is definitely a powder I would consider repurchasing because I've actually, for the most part, really enjoyed it. It's the kind of powder that really blurs your pores a little bit, and given that I don't really use a primer these days, any help that I can get to blur them pores a bit is welcome. But anyway, we were talking about The Little Mermaid. I am going to take my Gucci bronzer in the shade 03 with my little Sonia G brush here from the Hinoki set. So, The Little Mermaid, like I said, early 90s. My brother gets a VHS, I get a VHS, I get a VHS of The Little Mermaid. And what happened at home, especially, I think it must have been close to the summer holidays, because I remember like watching the movie basically on repeat. So it would go like this. I would watch The Little Mermaid, rewind it, watch it again, remind it to watch again if possible. But we had this agreement with my brother that, you know, he needed to have some time on the TV as well to spend with Batman. So I know the Batman movie also really well because I've seen that one also like about 1 million times. But we would just basically replay each of our VHSs like 1 million times. And the VHS, if you're imagining like some sort of like an original actual VHS that was distributed legally, you would be wrong. We're talking about bootlegged versions here, okay? Because in like slightly post-communist Bulgaria, I'm assuming there were no like original VHSs, so these were definitely bootlegged versions. But at the time, the term bootlegged version didn't really, pirated version was not something that we were aware of. So if you went to the, oh, how are they called in English? Like the store where you rent VHSs, we had those when I was a kid. Not a store, but like a place where you rent a VHS. Everything there was basically bootlegged. But anyway, so I grew up with The Little Mermaid. I adore the music in The Little Mermaid. Like I adore the music in all the Disney movies because Alan Menken, is it Menken? That's how you spell his name? I don't know how, but that's how you pronounce it. But he and Howard Ashman, the two people who basically have written most of the iconic music that you're aware of in the Disney movies, especially the ones that came out in the, you know, 80s and 90s, are absolute musical geniuses. So I adored the music of The Little Mermaid so much. Everything about The Little Mermaid is just iconic to me. And we all know that there was a ton of controversy, unnecessary controversy, when the live-action movie was announced. People had a lot of opinions about the skin color of our new Ariel. For blush, by the way, I am going to take the stunning soft red, also from Gucci. So, because the movie's already been out for a while, and I am not the kind of person who really like avoids reading reviews and stuff like that about a movie that they haven't seen yet. So, like, I have read some reviews and some people's opinions, and you know, some people have very interesting opinions and they like really like to pick things apart. Again, I forgot to do my brows, for the love, sweet baby. I'm going to do them in a second. I'm just going to put on my blush and then I will do my brows off camera. But anyway, I had read a lot of reviews and there was so much criticism about, you know, how terrible the CGI is and blah blah blah, and how unnatural her hair moves in the water, blah blah blah. And I watched the movie without, I didn't really know what to expect. I just, you know, wanted to enjoy especially the music and especially her voice, because I did hear her sing. Like, there was a live performance, I think, at Disney of Part of Your World, and she sounded phenomenal. And the other thing you should know, I had absolutely no idea that Halle Bailey is actually famous. Like, famous, like some people might have known about her some people might have not known about her, so she was on the one hand like a new fresh face, but on the other hand someone who was already kind of popular. I had no idea who she was. Let me blend that blush out a bit because I went a little bit overboard here. But let me tell you, that girl sings like a freaking angel. She embodies Ariel in every single aspect that you can ever imagine. I did my brows off camera and now I'm going to do my highlighter. I'm going to take the Divine Rose highlighter, also from Pat McGrath. So basically, I just absolutely loved the movie. Like, the fact that I watched it twice already tells you more than enough about how much I enjoyed it. I think she was absolutely stunning as Ariel. And like I said, her singing voice is out of this world beautiful. And I'm not someone who likes to like pit amazing performers against each other, so I'm not going to be like, oh, I preferred this version over this version. No, I think Jodie Benson's, like especially the, you know, iconic Part of Your World, I think both versions of the song are beautiful in their own way. But what I think is really interesting is that obviously Halle has a completely different voice. She has like this like very like light, crystal clear kind of sound to her. She enunciates really well, and I think that they've made changes to the song in a very like classy way, you know, very subtle way. They brought in like small subtle differences to make it different, to differentiate from the original Jodie Benson performance, but also to modernize it a little bit and get like a tiny bit of the flair of like Halle's vocal abilities in there. I'm going to take my sponge, Spritz Fix Plus, you know the drill. So basically, I think she is the perfect Ariel, so fuck the haters. I highly recommend watching the movie if you haven't, especially if you grew up loving The Little Mermaid, and if you've already watched it, I'm curious what you think about it. I think I was far less worried about Ariel, and I was more concerned with the guy who plays Prince Eric, because Prince Eric was my favorite prince, Disney prince, growing up, obviously. So I was a little bit worried. I had never heard of the dude who plays Prince Eric, so obviously I was a bit worried whether he's going to bring, you know, the little humor, the charisma, the charm that Prince Eric has in the original Disney animated version, and I was not disappointed. The new dude is absolutely adorable. I have slightly zoomed you in now so that we can start on the eye look. And I am bringing out my beautiful Huetopian Dream because I realized that I basically wait for the summer to wear shades like Shockwave, and somehow I didn't get around to wearing Shockwave this summer at all. So I'm going to use Shockwave, and I'm going to try to use the absolute lightest hand out there because this shade is otherwise very bright and very stark, and that's one of the reasons I don't like wearing it, is just too stark. So I'm going to try to like blend this out to be a little bit more ethereal looking, and if necessary I'm going to blend it a little bit with the neutrally pink shade to see whether that can tone it down if it turns out too bright. And then I'm going to use this beautiful shade here all over my lid, and then I'm going to tell you what we will do further for this look, because then I have to unwrap the other palette and I haven't done that already. So let's just start with that. And back to the Little Mermaid, they made very few like changes to the actual story. If you compare the animated version versus the live action, I think the few little changes that they made really, you know, were very welcome and really contributed to the story. Oh, one has to obviously mention Melissa McCarthy as Ursula was also amazing. Honestly, I didn't mind anyone who was cast in this movie. I thought everyone did an amazing job, so I have no complaints about that. Do I have complaints about anything at all, actually? Oh yes, I do have one complaint. You know, in the very last scene in the original Little Mermaid, when King Triton turns her back into a human and she walks out of the water in that absolutely stunning purple like glittery dress, they've removed that from the live action movie. Basically for like all of her human experience above the water, she wears the same light blue dress. Oh no, excuse me, she had a slightly like light pink dress for, you know, the wedding to Prince Eric, but like for the most part she was wearing just that like one light blue dress, and I don't understand that choice because the purple glittery dress is also kind of iconic. Her, you know, coming out of the water and it looking like that dress is like made of like sparkles of, you know, seawater that glisten in the sun. They removed that, so I was a little bit disappointed. Like, they never showed her coming out of the water like they did in the original movie, so that's my only teeny tiny complaint, that they changed that scene, and basically that we didn't get to see the beautiful purple glitter dress. But for the rest, I thought the movie was absolutely delightful, and I cannot wait to watch it for the third time. In terms of music, like I said, amazing, everyone's performance, especially Halle, beautiful. They've added a few new songs. There is now a solo song from Prince Eric, which is called Wild Uncharted Waters, which I thought was really beautiful. There is also, and I thought that was really, really clever of them. So you know how when she turns into a human, Ursula takes her voice. So if we were to get like a version of the movie where Halle Berry can't speak for like half of the movie, we would only like get to hear her sing very few times. But they did a little change where they basically introduce like her inner world of experiencing the world above the water in song. So we got to hear her sing a little bit more. And of course, my favorite, Lin-Manuel Miranda, was involved in writing the new songs, so that makes them even more special. I think he's an amazing songwriter, and I really enjoyed this new song as well. And I had read some, you know, criticism of the Scuttlebutt song. So the seagull is played by Awkwafina, and I think Awkwafina is hilarious, and I think she was perfectly cast as Scuttle. But at one point there's like a little like duet between her and Sebastian, which is rapped. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's so out of place, it doesn't belong at all in the story. And once again, F the haters. Totally belonged in the story. It was perfectly placed, perfectly executed, and I really enjoyed it. And we got to hear a bit of, you know, the rapping magic of Lin-Manuel Miranda. So, I mean, he didn't rap the song, Awkwafina did, but he wrote it. So, to me, all the new song additions, beautiful. By me, they could have added more. But Part of Your World is just took my breath away, almost made me cry. And now I am plotting to try to convince my singing teacher to at least attempt to sing that song a little bit. I low-key suspect she'll be like, that song is really not for you. But if I can get her to at least, you know, try and teach me a few things while at it, that would be amazing. I'm going to take the Pat McGrath Intensifies stick now to apply as a glitter glue type of base. And just like draw it here onto the lids. I usually like to reserve my Pat McGrath Intensifies stick for like my lower lash line because it really helps shades to stay there. But I've had this for like 2 years now and I don't want it to expire, so I'm actually going to try to pan this product now before even opening my new NYX glitter glue, and then I will possibly, I think maybe even repurchase this one. I'm not sure yet. I don't know whether that would be a smart move, but let's say that for the time being I'm just going to try to pan the Pat McGrath Labs Intensifies stick. And then I'm just going to take, I can't remember if this shade works better with the fingers, but let's apply it first with a brush. I don't know the name of this shade. I think Cosmic something. Cosmic Bloom. There you go. It's a beautiful, oh, such a pretty shade. It's a peachy, pinky, corally shade, nothing too exciting in terms of the duochrome, but it just has so much dimension to it, and I think it is just such a stunning, happy shade. I really like it. This is one of my favorite like summer looks to do, and for some reason this year I did not do this look even once, which is why I'm trying to make use of the last opportunity that I have, because this is really not an eye look that I can pair with any of my winter clothing, even if I were to want to wear it then, which I really don't. Corals really aren't shades that I think of much in the winter. Anyway, I would love to know what you thought about The Little Mermaid if you have seen it, and which your favorite Disney movie is. Although I think I know the answer that like 90% of the people give, which is The Lion King. But there's a fun fact about me. I dislike movies with humanized animals. I just, they don't do it for me. Whenever you have these, like Madagascar and what's the other one called, you know, there have been so many of these movies where they like humanize animals, and I understand The Lion King is a moving story and I think it's enjoyable and the music is beautiful, but it doesn't even qualify in my top 3 favorite Disney movies. After The Little Mermaid, we'd probably have Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin. And now you're probably wondering, Mariam, you're wearing corals, but you have like green elements all over like your outfit and your ring and your little like second ear piercing here. So what are we doing that is going to be green? Let me immediately inform you, my friends. We're going to take the Bronze Seduction palette and I'm going to dip into the beautiful VR Fire Opal, because these two will look beautiful together. And I'm actually going to whack VR Fire Opal here into my inner corners. Oh, so pretty. And I'm considering whether I want to apply a bit of that or a bit of the Astral. I think I'm going to whack on a bit of the Astral over top of the coral shade, like just the tiniest bit, but I wanted to put VR Fire Opal in my inner corners with a coral so bad. And honestly, I think it looks very pretty. I'm going to slightly take that also over top of the coral. And I am going to just take a few flakes of the Astral shade here to apply like the absolute tiniest bit over top of the coral. I really don't want to take away from the coral too much, just add like the tiniest layer of extra sparkle without removing the coral hue too much. For my lower lashes, I'm actually going to take this Kiko eyeshadow stick. Again, I think a color that doesn't really exist anymore. This is the shade 45, which is a very pretty peachy pink, and I'm going to apply that on my lower lashes and lightly set it with Shockwave. Taking Shockwave now, and I'm going to use that both in my waterline as well as lightly on the lower lashes. I have spoiled you and you probably now fully expect to see sparkle moment, so for your benefit and my benefit, here is this look under artificial lighting, because let's be honest, it looks absolutely glorious under artificial lighting, doesn't it? I did decide to stick to the coral theme also for the lips, because I do find it a little bit difficult to pair a look like this with a lip, because I feel like you can't really go very like bold with the lip because this is already quite bright. So I did go for a coral, but because it's a gloss, it's a little bit more toned down, but it still fits the color theme quite nicely. And you probably recognize by the packaging that this is one of Lisa Eldridge's glosses. This is the shade Go Lightly. I think it works really well with the eye look. I'm really enjoying how the eye look turned out. I think it's, you know, so bright and fresh and still a little bit summery, and it just gives me all the good vibes. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Do let me know what you thought about this look. Let's chat a little bit about The Little Mermaid and your favorite Disney movies. As usual, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!